Yeah, we worked with 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗪 before to make this fight happen, and we can continue to work for him. As I said earlier, I think the rematch is a fight, providing Junaid is interested in it. It's a fight that makes a lot of sense. The first two fights were tremendous. I say again, Junaid showed so many improvements. So really be led by what he's thinking as well. But that would be a massive fight. That's a fight that could arguably headline a show as well. You saw the atmosphere that was generated in here for that. We had close to 10,000 people in here at that point watching that show, and yeah, all respect to both guys, and especially to Junaid as well, jumping straight back in there where many people probably wouldn't have thought he would have done it.
We saw Josh Padley. A lot of people disagreeing with the scorecards. What's your take on that?
I always say I'm always very open. I'm not an expert scorer, hence why I work on this side and I'm not a judge. I think if a fight's close and you lose by a round, you can't argue. I think ultimately the scorecards were far too wide, and we say it time and time again, how do we change things in this sport? And there needs to be change, and then it needs to be looked at, at least reviewed and answered. It needs to be answers as to why was it scored like that. They may give reasons that you accept or disagree with, but I do think it has to be looked at. Reece has still got opportunities to come back. We had the Ghana fight 11 weeks ago, jumped straight back in there into this fight. He's still got opportunities in the sport. I'm sure he'll be frustrated now, but he'll look at what's next for him.
Do you think a rematch is unlikely between the pair at that point?
I'm not counting it out, but I think so. I think it is, but again, anything in boxing seems to be possible.
And 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗪 did tonight, sensational win to pick up his first two titles.
Yeah, 100%. He closed the show. It's all good looking, skillful and sharp, but he went in there and he closed the show with a brilliant performance. Sets himself up brilliantly for fights ahead. We're looking to do a show, as many people know, in the Midlands later part of this year. If his hand's in a good place, I think he may have hurt his hand slightly, then he'll be on there. If not, we'll get him out early part of next year.
The flyweight division isn't exactly stacked with fighters. Do you think he could jump he's got the English now, he could jump straight into that British title shot?
Yeah, for sure. He's got the opportunity to do that. I think he's someone who needs to move fast as well. I think he's someone who's going to show his skill and ability as he moves up the ranks.
You had your eyes on Josh Warrington. If Josh Padley was to get through tonight, with his performance, do you think he could beat Josh Warrington?
I think it's a great fight. And hence why we said it. Look, I think every fight, you can compare performances of every fighter to the next. But I think each fight is going to be different and individual. I think that's a great fight if we can make it happen. It's a huge fight in Yorkshire, but let's see.
Any more?
No?
Wonderful. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go on.
𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗓 has been reported that he's out of his fight on November the 22nd. Is it likely that we could see them jump straight into the 𝗙𝗓𝗟𝗓𝗪 trilogy?
It's the first I've heard of it, to be honest. I didn't know that. That's the 𝗙𝗓𝗟𝗓𝗪 fight. The trilogy is huge. The first two were brilliant fights. It's a fight lots of people will want to see again, providing it makes sense for the fighters. But I honestly don't know about the 𝗙𝗪𝗟 situation. No problem.
Frank, how do you see the Ewbank Jr. versus Ben fight going? Can we have a round? Can we have a method? Can we have a prediction from you?
No, you can't, because I'll get in trouble either way I say anything. As I said, look, two men are going to get in the ring. The best man's going to win. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is on the fight. I obviously represent Conor, but I have very close links to Team Ewbank. I think it will be a brilliant fight. I think it will round one of that fight will be like round 13 of the last. I think the experience will play a difference in this fight. I don't think Conor's ever had the experience of a fight like that. He's never been the rounds. He's never been in a fight anywhere near that type of night. There was a lot of pressure on him. It'd been built up over 3 years, that fight. But Chris has been in big nights as well. He's the bigger man, as we saw in that fight as well. He was a much bigger man in the ring. But it'll be no different. It'll be a tremendous fight. From round one onwards, it'll be like round 13. I can't wait to watch it. Don't miss it. All live and exclusive on DAZN.
But did the rehydration clause that had Ewbank Jr. looking like Skeletor in there at times, do you think that's going to play a factor in the second fight with, a little bit older, a little bit dehydrated still?
Yeah, look, that's one thing I can comment on is the narrative of the second day weigh-in that he had. He weighed in well under the 170 limit. on the second day. I think he, off the top of my head, if I get this wrong, it was a few months ago. I have a lot going on. I think he was 167.6. If you were someone really stretching yourself on that, you would weigh in at 170. Like that's the reality of it. The key is the 160 weight he missed. He didn't miss the rehydration weight or the second day weight. He missed the 160. The weight that he is naturally at. He posted the videos of him making weight because it's a narrative. He likes to push. And then you have an interview with me and his manager who says, 160 is fine. Because every fight he'd ever take is at 160. Every fight he was talking about was at 160. It wasn't about the weight, but obviously they're all about narrative. They're brilliant at telling stories. That's what Chris is great at. One thing I will always commend Chris on is he is a brilliant storyteller. But people forget that Conor is a much smaller man. Conor started this camp at 156 pounds. He could make 147 still. And that's why he aims to go back to 147 after this fight and challenge for a world title. So you can create narrative any which way you want, can't you? If you're on that side of the fence, you say, no, it's like Conor's making the big jump. That's the sport we're in. We're all about people creating narrative, and that's why you're still talking about it now. And that's no disrespect, just like everyone is.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Frank, I know you've got options on Dave, even with the defeat. But you're now steering towards a trilogy with Johnny Fisher.
I mean, look, we will always look to do what's best. We'll also be working with Arsenal moving forward as well. He's got the opportunity to go into big fights, as I said earlier. With Dave, he said to me in the ring, do you think people will still come out for me? I was like, of course, look at these people, they love you. They love him because of who he is. Results are indifferent. When you take challenges, when you test yourself to be the best, people have more respect for you. As I say so many times, there's so many fighters who wouldn't do that. For Dave, I think he needs some time resting. I said to him in the ring though, stay the way you've been, don't let yourself go, because his application to the trade of boxing over the last 9 months has been amazing to see. He's completely changed his life, and I want him to keep like that, regardless of whether he wants to, what fight he wants to go into, whatever he wants to do. From a mental perspective, I've never seen Dave Allen like it, and it's good to see good people in a good place, and that's what Dave Allen is. So let's see, have some rest first, and then think about what's next.
Could you tell us a little bit about how unique of a character Dave is, with the path that he's had and the defeats that he's had to be able to come and sell this many tickets and get a crowd going like that? It's really unique, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But it's also like, and I say this, 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗍 is a close friend of mine away from boxing as well. Like someone I've grown very close with. Him and Dave Allen, similar. Derek's had 10 losses. I think Dave's had 8 now and a couple of draws. The truth is, and this is what we have to change with the sport, and I think this is what is changing. Losses should be irrelevant. It should be: did you go out there? Did you give it all? Did you put it on the line? Did you test yourself to the best of your ability? Yes, I did. Happy days, and that's why nights like this you see, because people have respect for him. He had loads of other names he could have fought, but he wanted to test himself. He wanted to go in there against great fighters, and again come back to it's such a fickle sport where Arslanbek is sort of, he lost against this person, he's finished. No, that's boxing. That's sport. Why should we know the result of every fight? And as we got to last night, everyone's thinking Dave could do it. Oh, this guy's a huge luck. That's what it's all about. So yeah, it's unique, but it shouldn't be unique. That's the reality of it.
Frank, Giorgio Vizioli's just picked up another unanimous decision win. What could you win the titles next for Vizioli?
Yeah, we're actually looking for him to headline before the end of the year. I haven't seen the performance. I haven't seen. Make sure he's all no injuries, but that's the plan. Vizioli is a brilliant fighter. And really coming out of himself as well, and building a real profile for himself, and he's got a great personality. So the key is with him is moving up now. This was supposed to be a real test for him. So I haven't watched the fight, so I can tell you about it.
80-73.
There you go. I mean, everyone was saying it was a real test for him out there. So yeah, the aim will be for him to headline before the year's out.
And what type of opponents could we see him in there? Domestic level opponents?
Yeah, I think so. Domestic level opponents. He's in a great position as well, where as he looks to progress and move on. Look at him out there as well with 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗍𝗓 Moses. There's talk of 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓 as well, who he was sparring with. There's so many opportunities for these fighters, and they're really in a position now where they're going to, move very quickly because they're too good. All right.
Sorry.
Love the clap. Thanks very much.
Well done, Frank.
Thanks. Cheers. Thanks all. Thanks for coming. Appreciate